This is KTN News.
Right, it's 6 minutes after 8, and it's time for us to review the week or the year that has been. And in case you're joining us now, welcome aboard. We have Ruth Ambogo, David Osiani, and Mark Bichachi in studio with us. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very interesting year, has had quite a lot. So it becomes very difficult to wrap that up in 30 minutes, but we'll try and do the best that we can. So let me start by maybe just throwing a general question, and anyone can pick this, on what has stood out for you this year, particularly politically speaking.
I think for me, politically speaking, what has stood out, which to some may be a bit negative, was the rate at which corruption scandals were being exposed this year. I think the media needs to be congratulated, or whoever the whistleblowers have been this year. It might sound like doom to the Kenyans in terms of the amounts of monies that are usually mentioned in these scandals. But for me, it is something worth noting in the sense that this seems to point to the fact that there's some effort being made towards fighting corruption. Had we not had goodwill from the media, goodwill from whoever has been exposing these scandals, goodwill from the investigative authorities, we would not be seeing this kind of rot being exposed. And I think the fact that it is being exposed and we are beginning to see some big names, that for me stood out, in fact, that the fact that big names were actually now, being put to the limelight, people like Babayao and Babatoka and Sonkos of this world, and some cabinet secretaries, some departments entirely being suspended or rather having to stop working. For me, that was a good sign in the sense that we can see some effort. We can see effort sometimes is measured in terms of how some things can be unearthed. Meaning, had we had a silent year where we would see less of the stories being exposed, then we should have been worried in the sense that what more would be happening without us knowing. So I think the fact that we actually even got to know about some of these scandals was a step in the right direction. So for me, my hope for 2020 would be that let's have some follow-up on some of these big scandals that came up. It would be so infuriating. I remember a time, and I think BBI sort of, the coming out of the BBI report sort of calmed down some fires, or rather, because there was a time we would be here on media and every other week we would talk about a scandal, and it was the same narrative, same story. I think to some extent, some of us would even, it's almost as if you'd come to the studio and you'd say, what I said last week, remember what we had, the discussion we had 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We discussed corruption for such a consistent long time, to the point that it became tiresome. But then, the efforts were, we can see now the fruits of the efforts. The fact that our anger out here, our speaking about it, our exposing of the same, our expression of what the people feel on the ground, what the citizens feel, the effects of the same to the young people, kind of brought some focus towards fighting it as a vice, and we hope that in 2020 they will increase the volume kidogo.
Okay, yeah. David, before we come to what stood out for you, maybe your comments on Ruth, what stood out for her was now the stories coming out. Would you say that in a way is giving us some traction on the fight of corruption? We certainly have seen things we hadn't seen before.
No, absolutely. Spotlighting graft and the war against it has been a great plus for this country. And I want to congratulate the media, the fourth estate, for relentlessly supporting the war against corruption by spotlighting it, by ensuring that, we get to know who is what. And you see, what it has ended up showing is that if there is a concerted effort against fighting corruption, it pays off. It would be meaningless if Nurdin and Kinoti were trying,
and
media is ignoring that fight and not even giving it space or airtime. Or you would not allow us, when we came to your show here every Friday morning, to talk about it and give our thoughts and and our views and encourage the war against corruption. And so it has paid off, and paid off handsomely. For the first time, who in God's good earth could imagine that Sonko would be arrested. You guy. No, it was
He was untouchable.
unforeseen. Almost Sonko
Unimaginable.
behaved like, those who know him, and I am a student of political psychology of socialism, of populism. I studied these characters, and Sonko was one, populist to the core. He has a massive support behind him. Those who support him without probably knowing him, they just like that he can pass by and drop a kg of unga once in 5 years. No one imagined Baba Yao and Sonko were the governors who, to Jubilee, brought the highest number of votes.
Yeah.
Okay? We used to think, I remember when Sonko was even cleared to run for office. I asked, how has Sonko been cleared? And I was being told, allegedly, how Jomo Geshaga made a call to release Sonko and ensure that he has a certificate of good conduct from DCI. And I said, Jomo Geshaga, who is the peer to the president? I said allegedly, but that's what I heard. And soon I would see when these gold scams and everything, again, Jomo Geshaga's name would show up. And I said, listen, you may escape, but it catches up. This is what Baba Yao's story has told us. Even if Baba Yao were to go to office, which is not possible, just like I think Nairobi going forward, we'll just probably have to prepare for a by-election, or the national government may have to take over the responsibilities of the county, because I don't see the possibility of Sonko going back to that seat. I am not crucifying him as illegal, as guilty. But I said, I have watched Sonko. I have a video on YouTube. I don't know whether I need to share it with you, where Sonko stands up in the multitude and says, mimi niliiba, nikaiba, nikatajirika, nikafungwa, lakini baada ya kuiba na kutajirika sasa mimi ni kiongozi.
That's kind of impunity.
That is sad impunity. He shouldn't, on that basis alone, be allowed anywhere near a public office. So the spotlighting, on war against graft has been absolutely fantastic. It has given the people who are involved, Twalib, Nurdin, the multi-agency team, a bit of gusto going forward. And we just hope that going into next year, a lot more heads will roll. And administrative action by the president will be done.
All right, Mark, your thoughts on what stood out for Ruth? Very briefly, because I'd like to also get what stood out for you and for David.
You know what is interesting for me when you talk about the fight against corruption is when you look at DCI, you've got congratulations to give them. You can look at the false starts they had, and then they got their act together and things like that. If you look at the DPP, the cases have tightened. They're no longer asking for more time in order to persecute people. And if you ask people who are handling Waititu's case or whatever, they'll tell you, man, that goose is cooked. So things are looking good. If you look at the media, the coverage, and the amount of time that has been given to debate these issues. And if you look at even the political parties, the fact that not many of them are saying, oh my goodness, let's defend our Kamba, let's defend our Luo, let's defend our Kikuyu. They're not doing that. So that's good news. The fact that Mount Kenya didn't erupt to try and support Waititu, good news. But there's one institution from which we've not had good news. It's called the judiciary.
They have tried.
What have they tried to do? Let me tell Kenyans. They've not, at any point, tried to expedite these cases. They had to be forced by public outcry to even give sensible bail times to people who've stolen 1 billion shillings, right? They had to be forced to give reasonable bail. On top of that, today, people are already celebrating, saying that they're going to allow governors to go back. Now, let me tell you something. If you allow governors to go back, you're not only giving a lifeline to Waititu, but you're also telling every other governor, you know what, steal.
Go ahead and do it.
Go ahead and steal, because nothing will be done to you. You'll not be touched. So for me, today, We are watching the judiciary. But I am sick and tired of them disappointing us. Now, the truth of the matter, you may hide behind your lots of legalese, your constitutionalism, and all of those things. But what is right to be done remains what is right to be done. What is good for the country remains what is good for the country. But I must congratulate from the bottom of my heart the people who have taken the step to fight against corruption. Let me tell you, it takes courage, it takes boldness, and it is a step not only in the right direction, but it's a step that we hope we will sustain for as long as this country exists.
Yes. David Osiani, what stood out for you this year?
No, I think it can't be greater than that. I think that there is no greater joy than to see some corrections being made about things we have cried about. So I want to congratulate the Kenyan Navy, because when Mama Pendo and what is the name? The lady died with the baby. Mariam.
Yeah.
We were so mad that they were just basically preparing for for Mashujaa Day around the corner, and they couldn't save these people, ill-equipped, what. Now, a few months down the line, a month or so, another incident happened, and they jumped in and resolved it in a couple of hours. Those lessons learned need to be celebrated. I don't want us to be people who just keep crying and not giving credit where it's due.
Yeah.
So when some of these things happen, then we need to stand and say, okay, this used to be bad, we made noise about it, it has happened. The president rescinded his original thought on the housing levy, which was to be compulsory, which pushes forward the Big Four agenda. That for me is a big thing. I look forward to the rolling out of the UHC, Universal Health Cover, because that will be a big blessing for this country, but only if it's managed right. I trust that the Ministry of Health has competent people. You know, it said what a man can do, a woman can do better. You know, Ministry of Health, I bet, is the only ministry that has both a CS and a PS who are ladies. And I just want them to demonstrate, as they have tried to, that what a man can do, a woman can do better. And roll out that UHC thing as mothers, as competent professionals with years of illustrious, career. But while they do that, I also hope they resolve the mishap that they found there of this hiring of equipment that were hired at God knows how much amount, something for 1,500 at 1.2 million. So there has been many things learned through the years. The high has been the obvious arrests, the resignation of cabinet secretaries, or the firing of cabinet secretaries and PSs who are involved in graft, Aror Kimwarer and many of those, the helicoptering of Mike Sonko, the impeachment of Trump, the impeachment of Waititu. Somehow, I think there is traction, and it is an attempt to get the river back to its course.
All right. Mark Bichachi, maybe what stood out for you this year?
What stood out for me was, and it still shocks me, is the absolute negativity with which Kenyans treat their country. It really stood out for me.
That stands out almost every
He even wrote about
every
it.
single
No,
time.
it's
He even
Ask
wrote
Mark
about
what was
it.
his highlight. Because at this rate,
it's a thing of wonder.
But us, we are positive.
No, it's a thing of wonder. I'll give you an example.
Expressway.
The other day, just about a week ago, the president launched 210,000 solar panels in Garissa, okay, giving 50 megawatts of power into the grid, okay? Do you know how much attention it got in our media? 30 seconds.
but Kenyans are not to blame for
No,
that.
just wait.
Take the blame right to where
No,
it needs
I'm
to
building-
sit, and
Well,
it's not
he's-
even the
he's-
media.
Just wait.
it's who mobilizes
I'm
the
building
media.
to something. The other day, the president launches the housing program. Park Road is nearly complete, right? A program which everyone said could never happen. It happened despite the court injunctions and whatever. Still, Kenyans not talking about it. You come to the expressway, and the hue and cry
by Kinausianya around
By-
Uhuru Park.
Not even about Uhuru Park. Those queue and cry about everything. Why do we need the road? Why should it be there?
But
Why
Mark,
should it go through over Nairobi?
As you continue, Mark, you're chair
That's his
of Brand
highlight.
Kenya.
I'm on
that's
the
why
board.
he's
I'm on the board.
complaining.
I'm not the chair is just bid. Yeah.
And that's why he's complaining about the negativity.
And no wonder you're complaining about the negativity. But the question is, how much time has Brand Kenya given to actually, first of all, Brand Kenya for Kenyans
Well,
within Kenya?
first, Brand Kenya was disbanded. What exists now is Kenya Export Promotion and Branding
Which is one of the
Agency,
same.
which has an expanded mandate. But you're quite right. We have a role and responsibility to brand this nation. And one of the things that we need to understand that unless we get the cooperation of Kenyans, okay, and that's why I'm talking about it. When you look at, I'll give you an example. If you look at a state such as Dubai, when they decide to build a very tall, ridiculous building for the singular purpose of showing off their might as a country, their citizens do not complain. They do not say, you know what, if you drive out of Dubai, you'll find that Sharjah is not as developed as Dubai. You will not see the people of Sharjah saying, why are you building that building? Because they understand the importance of the common good. The problem with this country is you are given Huduma Day. Then you decide it is Huduma number. And then you complain.
Which did not work.
You complain the whole day. When you're told that 26th is going to be turned into a different holiday, Utamaduni Day, you want to defend Boxing Day, which, by the way, if you ask the average Kenyan what does Boxing Day mean,
They don't know.
They think it's a boxing ring between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Yet they want to fight it simply because it is something. So that for me is what stood out. And you see, for the first time in my life, I actually had to study the psychology of Kenyans. And our good friend Magal, who sits on this show, said something. That the problem with our nation is we are a people who have 99 problems for every solution. If you give Kenyans any solutions, they'll give you 99 problems with it. And one of the things that I hope my country will begin to do is we'll begin to see things from a positive light. I'll give you an example. Last example, Sonko is arrested. Then people decide to say that it is cartels fighting cartels. So my question is, if Sonko was stealing, which cartel is fighting him? What is the cartel? Haji is a cartel now. But because, you see, it is expedient for us. And the other thing is, I really pity the God of Kenyans. Because if you are the God of Kenya, my friend, you're in trouble. Because on Sunday, they pray and say, Aki God, please clear our country. And just get rid of the filth. Then God has Waititu arrested. Then the same people, oh, God protect our governor. You pray, God clean up Nairobi. Clean up Nairobi. Make Nairobi clean.
Dedicate
Oh, God,
Nairobi
please,
to Jesus.
we dedicate Nairobi to
for
you.
Jesus.
Toa mapepo. And then Sonko is arrested.
And Kankaka comes out with
Yes.
the same God.
Oh my
The same
God.
God is told, you know what? So, this is the problem. We are, look, final example. Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga get on a plane. They go to China to get money to finish the SGR. Okay? When they're denied the loan, the country is very happy. Yes, we didn't get the money to finish
Hallelujah,
SGR.
don't give us money.
The SGR, where the money gets to, is Suswa in
say it's
Naivasha.
going to nowhere.
Now we say it's going to nowhere.
All right, I think we've got the
Same
point.
people. Same people.
We need to finish the show on a positive point. And given that we are heading towards Christmas, I'll give you an opportunity to just give your, Christmas wishes to Kenyans, and I pray that it's positive.
Yeah.
I'll start with you, Ruth.
I think for me, thank you. You have honored my communities, for the first time. I have to commend KTN for, first of all, thank KTN for personally giving me as a young person an opportunity to sit on a platform that allows me to articulate what the young people feel. A lot of times, when I'm not on studio, when I'm not here, I engage with the youth a lot on social media. And sometimes before I come to the show, you actually see young people, some of them unemployed, some of them, still in school, some of them struggling out here, sending you messages and telling you, look, Ruth, say this on our behalf, I remember one time when I was on this show, I think 2 or 3 months back, a young lady inboxed me and she said, look, we've been working for, I think, a certain department of government, and they had not been paid for a very long time. And she was like, could you please bring it up on media? So for me, this has been a platform to amplify the voices of the young people, which has been very critical because we don't see, and this is to KTN management, I don't know which camera, this one, this one. Yes, this is to KTN management. We rarely see media houses actually giving young people an opportunity to articulate issues before more experienced individuals. I mean, this panel has been a wonderful panel. I have learned a lot from them. Each time we leave here, when I'm either with Osiani or with Bichachi, I continuously tell them how much I have grown from learning from them and just from articulating the issues of the young people. I've grown as an individual.
Your Christmas
and
wishes, we're out of
my
time.
Christmas wishes, this was thanks
you missed
to...
the chance for salams.
No, I am not missing my salams opportunity. To the most loyal people who have supported me, young people who've been watching me, I need to mention their names. There's a lady called Alicia Mukiri. She's been watching each and every show. Fred Muka, the guy who sells me the shoes, the wonderful shoes, Evans.
The shoes had to come up somehow.
Has been,
Now
has
you're
been.
advertising. I need your Christmas wishes.
Let me finish.
I need
Yes,
your
my Christmas wishes.
Otherwise,
No. I have to also mention, Mheshimiwa Daisy Nyongesa, who's been very supportive. My good friend Judy, who's been watching me all the time. Minim Luya. But Christmas wishes to my parents, to my grandma, back in Western. I know that this year is going to be different because it's the second year since we lost our grandpa. But I believe she's stronger now, and I just want to wish her good wishes.
Right.
My auntie in Mombasa.
We'll continue with them after the cameras are off. Mark, I need your Christmas wishes and your wrapping.
She's going through her phone book. For me, my Christmas wishes for this country is 2 things. Number 1, during Christmas, please take the time, instead of doing a resolution and changes about yourself, think, what can you change in your society? If you live in an estate and there is rubbish outside your door, then you should know you're already a rubbish person.
Wow.
It's not just about Kanjo cleaning it up, it's about you cleaning up your country. I think that's the one thing that I'm beginning to realize for myself, that if I cannot fix what is right outside my door, then I am exactly that rubbish I'm not fixing. The second thing is stop with the conspiracy theories and stop loaning your brains and your thoughts to politicians. By the 2020, if you are going to tweet me just because a politician is thinking on your behalf, I shall not engage you. And by saying I shall not engage you is I shall tell you very nice words. I will not insult you, but I'll put you in your place. Wow. People I need to thank. My father for teaching me the principles of hard work and getting me this far. My mom for believing in me even when I was crazy at every age of my life to date.
To date. Yeah.
Quite literally.
You're eating into
No, he has not
Osiani's
finished.
time. My issue is time.
I'm done. My wife and kids and everyone that has shown love to me over the years, asante sana. And of course, to KTN,
Especially
for
his
allowing
daughter.
me to sit, for bearing with me.
You would not make your daughter.
David
special
Osiani,
mention.
I need you to wind up very briefly.
This season offers us a very rare opportunity for introspection. How good were we to ourselves and to our country and society this year? Did we do as Christ would for the Christians who celebrate Christmas? Have you lived as Jesus would have? My dad Jared Osiani and my mother Tabitha Achieng Ochola Nyakinto
Hey.
instilled in us to always act as Christ would. In fact, my mom would say, when I got angry at any of my sisters, she'd say, behave as Jesus would. And I know Jesus got into the temple one time when he found people kidding in the temple and whipped them. Here is a moment of introspection. Don't drink yourself silly and forget about the future. December 1 has ended today. December 2 begins tomorrow. The salary for December 1 has been paid. December 2 has no salary. Just go about it knowing that life waits ahead. To KTN for offering us an opportunity to lend our voices to the growth of our country, to influence policy from this hallowed point. I am forever grateful. This has been a wonderful year. We all have a responsibility. To all those who viewed, who were supportive, from family to friends, just know that I appreciate each of you. I know my daughter Teko is watching.
Yeah.
Teko is watching and he's
Yes.
pointing the screen going, Daddy, Daddy. I love you and all other children out there. God bless you as you go into this festive season. God go ahead of you and see you again next time. Feliz Navidad.
Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen, and have yourselves a Merry Christmas. Keep safe. If you must drink, don't drive. That's where we wind up this
You
segment
must
of the
drink
show.
water.
That's where we wind this segment of the show, but do stay with us. We have more coming out for you right here on Morning Express. We take a break.